I never really thought that I'll have issues with cruiser-related skills, but I had to wait a couple days before recording this ship because my skills weren't exactly where I wanted them to be. To be more accurate, the expert skills haven't been the best, but here we are. This is the Adrestia, the Serpentis Special Edition ship. Now, this ship has been buffed recently. It used to have only 4 high slots, but now it has 5. Meanwhile, the Fiend has lost 1 high slot. It used to have 5, now it has 4. So let's take a look at the ship trait description. Roll bonus plus 5 seconds damage control activation time. Okay, that's quite interesting. Now, as I mentioned before, this ship does require you to have expert skills, and this is kind of a fusion between the Cinnabal and the Vigilant. You get some very nice webs, and you get a very nice disruptor optimal range, and you also get relevant damage and relevant accuracy fall-off. The Adrestia has 1 drone, 5 high slots, 3 medium slots, 5 low slots, 3 combat, and 3 engineering rigs. Now, this is primarily a armor tank, a active armor tank, because its special mode will enhance the armor repairer. Although, for a passive tank, you can technically use it like the Vigilant with the large extender, with the large shield extender, and I'll be showing you how that works. But the other stats are okay. It has a decent capacitor, decent recharge rate, and the Adrestia is the second fastest special cruiser that we currently have in the game. Now, this is the current build that I have. I use blasters, although you can also use this ship like the Vigilant and basically use it like a kite, but this ship is kind of built to be a close range ship, but that should not stop you at trying out the rifled railguns. 1 disruptor, dual webs, 1 micro object capacitor battery, 1 large armor pair, and dual armor hardeners. Now, for the nanocore, I thought that you were able to use the nanocore from the Vigilant, but unfortunately you can't because these ships are classified as totally different ships. So right now there's only 1 nanocore available. You can get this nanocore from the Concord Pass, and it can be obtained completely for free. But in this video I'll be flying this ship without a nanocore. For the rigs, 1 nanobot accelerator, 1 auxiliary nanopump, and 1 anti-explosive pump. In the engineering rigs, 1 semiconductor and dual capacitor control circuits should maintain the armor repair for a very long time. 43,000 hit points, 60, 48, 49, and 57% resistance on armor. Okay, well, let me undock and let me show you the active stats of this ship. Now, I have the thermal circulation implant, which does help a lot with tank, and on this ship you can use the hypothetical or the thermal circulation. Since I have the thermal circulation, I'll be using that one. It does add a bit more tank, and it also helps with the DPS. 62,000 hit points and 2.2 km per second is the micro warp drive speed. 79, 73, 74, and 78% armor resistance, which honestly is pretty nice. Now, the repairing modes: minus 20% armor repair cooldown, plus 20% armor repair, turret damage minus 20%, ship velocity minus 20%, and ship capacity recharge is plus 20 seconds. Now, this ship is definitely going to be changed and buffed in the future. Mainly, I expect them to increase the Adrestia's speed, and I also expect them to change the special mode to basically give you faster capacitor recharge. Although it's not really that stable right now when you run the armor repair with the special mode, but with the right rigs and with the right modules you can counter that. But this ship can be a fantastic active armor tank ship. Now, you can use an afterburner, which will definitely help you with the capacitor. After all, the afterburner doesn't have the capacitor penalty. It also can work with the damage control. After all, you have the bonus on the damage control, so technically it's made to be used on this ship. And you can use a build like this, although the issue that you have with this build is the capacitor. I think the capacitor is one of the main problems with this ship, and I believe that they will be changing how the ship works just because of that capacitor. If it would had minus 20% capacity recharge, then it would charge faster, which would help with the ship's active tank, and that's what I expect to happen with the Adrestia. But 1 minute and 20 seconds is still, I would say, relatively acceptable. You can add one Nosferatu, which I will do when I dock in a second. The resistance looks pretty nice, 81, 75, 76 and 83, and with the damage control active, that is going to be 181,000 hit points, 93, 91 and 92% resistance, which honestly is really good for a active tank cruiser. Relatively good, I would say. And I'm pretty satisfied with the speed. It does kind of work like the Salos in a way, but the Salos, I think the Salos special mode does work a bit better for now because of the extra DPS. It's a bit more usable, although this special mode is also usable, but the capacitor is the main problem. Now let me add one medium Nosferatu. This thing has a lot of powers, and that's what I noticed. You can add a lot of things on it, a lot of large modules, which will work really well for a ship like this. 2 minutes and 48 seconds is now the capacitor, which, you know, is really good now. I would say really good because it does basically double it, but let's undock and let's see how the ship will look with this current modules active. Now you can also use a capacitor battery instead of one adaptive if you have the thermal circulation, because of the extra resistance that you get from the thermal circulation implant, so you can enhance the capacitor even more, and I'll show you how that looks when I change the build next time. Now with the implant active, 859.65 DPS, which honestly for a tank build is okay, and of course with better skills your DPS will be much higher than this.
Docking request
but
accepted.
For my current skills for this ship, I would say that's pretty solid. Now let me open the fitting window and let me change that one adaptive into a medium capacitor battery. You can fit a capacitor battery with a build like this easily, and now the capacitor will be enhanced even more, but you will sacrifice a little bit of resistance, although that shouldn't be a problem. After all, you do repair a lot of armor with that large armor repair. Okay, now let me do something with the medium armor repairs. A lot of players do prefer to use dual medium repairs over one large armor repair because they use less capacitor and they do cycle fast and they do recover armor really quickly. So you can do the dual medium armor repair build on this ship easily, and here I think I can slap one large Nosferatu, and there we go. 3 minutes and 55 seconds is the capacitor runtime, and it should still offer some really solid resistances with one adaptive and damage control, and of course with the thermal circulation implant active.
Undocking.
All that does help with the capacitor quite a bit, and with the tank as well. You can even use the general units for a Nosferatu to improve the capacitor even more. After all, they have buffed the Nosferatus and neutralizers, so now they work a bit better than before. 56,000 hit points, that was pretty solid actually. And with the damage roll, 151,000 hit points, 90, 88, 88 and 90%. Honestly, I'm really happy with how this ship looks and works so far. The armor repair buff when the special mode is active is there, and as you can see they do cycle quite quickly. This little boat has some very nice potential that I really like. No, this is not my ship. A friend of mine borrowed me
Docking
to record
request
a video,
accepted.
so I have to make sure that I return the ship in one piece. Okay, so let me open up the fitting window again, and I think it will be time to go with a more DPS focused build. So for DPS I would use the triple burst aerator build. Now the burst rigs are good, and the high DPS build is going to be good in PvP and PvE. Overall, the ship's bonuses allow it to be really good in PvP, just like the Vigilant. The only issue you might find with the three medium slots, because a lot of ships have stabs now, so you have to sacrifice the slots for scramblers. But I think as time goes on, they will also change how the stabs work, and eventually the stab problem will go away. Now the classic build that I like to use is with the micro warp drift, with the damage toll and triple magnetic field stabilizers. Now the thing is, with a build like this, you can go with a shield passive tank. You can also do a passive armor tank with the armor plate. Now which one you prefer? Well, I would leave that up to you, but if you have the thermal circulation implant, then the armor plate will definitely give you a lot more hit points, and it would technically give you a better passive armor tank. But if you don't have the thermal circulation implant, if you have the higher power coil implant, then you can go with the shield extender, or with the armor and with the armor plate. Okay, sorry for the weird cut. Now let me add dual magnetic field stabilizers, and let me add, now first I'll do the shield extender build, just to show you how much shield you can get out of the extender. A extender general unit will also help a lot at increasing the volume, and you still have enough power grid for something else if you like to modify this build. 15,000 shield, 49,000 hit points, not bad. But in my case, since I have the thermal circulation implant, I will add one armor plate. Now I usually don't like to add plates to cruisers, mostly because they do slow your ship down, but in this case it might be a very interesting thing to do. 19,000 in armor, 54,000 hit points, and the resistances are definitely better than on the shield. So let's unlock and let's see the active stats when I undock. Now in this case the repair mode would be completely useless because the armor plate can't repair your armor, so you can put the repair mode at the other page in the module list. 1.9 km per second is the micro warp drift speed, which is not bad, but its speed could definitely be higher by, I would say, 10 to 15%. That would be ideal. And 145,000 hit points when the damage control is active. It's basically like a Cinnaball that uses railguns. A very interesting ship indeed. And now let me check the maximum DPS with the thermal circulation implant. Actually, at 1.5 thousand, almost 1.6 thousand DPS with one magnetic field stabilizer, it's 1.8 thousand, and with the second one, it is 2033.69 DPS. Nice. Well, that's pretty solid DPS output on this ship. I'm fairly happy with my current skills, and I'm fairly happy with how much DPS I got out of this cruiser. So, besides a build like this, you can basically do a lot of other things. You can add one adaptive. You can add. You can do a dual propulsion build. Technically, you can also do something like this and add the large armor repairer, but I still prefer, if you go with a active tank, I prefer to have more resistance, so I would definitely add a bit more adaptives here, but you can do something like this as well. Of course, you will sacrifice a little bit of DPS for extra tank. It's just how things go. Now, you can do a dual propulsion build on the Adrestia, basically combine an afterburner and a micro warp drive. This will sacrifice the extender, since you will have the damage control on the ship, or you can add the large shield extender, or add one magnetic field stabilizer. So if you want more DPS, you have to sacrifice the extender. If you want more tank, then you have to sacrifice a little bit of DPS. And you can do the same with the armor plates as well, but in this case, with the armor plates, I think I'm not going to have enough power grid. I'm going to be missing like 5 or something power grid, I believe. So I would advise that you go with one power grid rig in order to use a build like this with an armor plate, but I would say the shield extender or armor plate both will work fine in the end. The extender can be fitted if you don't have skills for armor, or if you don't have enough power to fit the armor plate, but the armor plate will give you a bit more tank if you have the thermal circulation implant that increases your armor resistance. Or you can add a Mark 9 armor plate, which does take less power grid. Overall, I have to say, pretty interesting ship. This is a high-sec only PvE build that you can use, and I have the burst adapters for high-sec, as I mentioned hundreds of times before. You don't need a little tank for high-sec, you need DPS and a little tank just to repair the incoming damage. Well then, time to take the Adrestia for a little ride. Let's see how this boat will perform and how this boat will work. Now, have to note that I don't have like the best skills for it. Surprisingly, the only skills that I'm lacking on the Adrestia are the skills for railguns. I don't know how that's not on level 5. I have most of the cruiser stuff on level 5, but somehow that wasn't skilled somehow. It's fine though. I spent some time to skill for the expert skills, and ideally you can get about 3.5-4,000 DPS with this ship, which is pretty solid. When we get a nanocore or other things that improve the performance, the DPS of this ship will definitely be vastly improved. Now, so far, I'm pretty happy with the DPS on this ship. The thing that I'm not really happy about is the fact that the special mode is reducing capacitor regeneration. Although I would say they can easily replace that to give the ship extra capacitor recharge, so that it recharges the capacitor faster. That will definitely help a lot, since you will probably run a micro warp drive for an afterburner, and all that does have an impact on the ship's capacitor. It reduces it, and it puts more strain on the power usage, which makes the special mode struggle in some cases with maintaining a stable tank. Now, of course, you can solve that with different rigs. You can solve that with different modules, with Nosferatus and all that. But since these are unique ships and special ships, to be more accurate, they should have some form of speciality to it. Now I know they have the special modes, which I'm all in for because they're good. They're pretty fun and they're pretty interesting, and they made these ships extremely interesting. But the special mode on the Adrestia can definitely be improved. Now the other thing that a lot of my friends have also told me, and a lot of you guys have also told me, the Adrestia is not as fast as the Vigilant. There's a little difference in speed, although the difference, while being little and small, it's still noticeable. So the Adrestia definitely should get a bit more extra speed. I would say about 10-15% extra speed would definitely be pretty solid, I would say. But again, feel free to tell me what you guys think. I like to collect suggestions, and I like to send all the suggestions to the developers, since I know that they listen to what I say. So if you have any recommendations for the current cruisers, feel free to let me know, and the developers will know as well. You know, they actually listen when you don't scream at them, which is to be expected. That's why I'm usually chill, and that's why I usually approach things from a logical perspective, without salt and without too much complaining. So now here you will notice me mess up with the thermal circulation a couple times. You can use the thermal circulation to boost your DPS. Although you have to be extremely careful not to overheat the implant. If you overheat the implant, then your DPS will be crippled, and the cycle of the railguns will be extremely long. While it gives you some decent DPS, it's a bit more difficult to use than the high protocol. The high protocol implant is definitely much easier to use and does last longer as well. It does also give you a fantastic DPS boost that you can definitely take advantage of. But the high protocol will not give you extra armor resistance. So to date, only the thermal circulation remains one of the more affordable implants that has one of the best widespread usability in the game. It is usable on literally all armor tank ships in the game, and that makes the implant quite, I would say, well, not expensive. I mean, I don't know how much it costs. I think the price did kind of jump since I started to talk about the implant being very good for all armor tanks. So more and more players started using it for tank. But it used to be quite cheap. You were able to get the purple one for like 2 billion. Now I think the purple one costs 5 billion, but I'm not really that sure of the prices at the moment, and I can't log in because the internet while recording this is down, so can't really see the prices. Have to log in to do that. And you might wonder, well, if my internet is down, how am I playing this? Well, this is pre-recorded, and I'm just adding voice on top of the video, so that I can easily follow what I'm doing here. Now the special mode does reduce your speed, and I'm totally fine with speed reduction. After all, the Celos also has the speed reduction. Now, but the Celos is, I would say the Celos is definitely a very interesting ship, because it has good DPS, it is a cover tops, and it can have some good tank. Cover top ships are not really known to have a good tank. The exception to that rule would be the Chameleon. That thing is tanky. The Chameleon is very, very tanky. It's basically a cover tops Gila in terms of tankiness. Actually 5% more tanky than the Gila, because the Gila has a 4% bonus per skill level for shield resistance on all damage types. The Chameleon has 5%, so on all 5 the Gila will have 20%, on level 5 the Chameleon will have 25%, a 5% difference. Might not seem much on paper, but that can technically halve the incoming DPS with a good build. So that's the difference between the Chameleon and the Gila. Now, how does the Adrestia compare to the Vigilant? Now, the Vigilant is cheaper, of course. The Vigilant is faster, but the Vigilant is not as tanky as the Adrestia. The Adrestia has that repair mode, which, you know, has its issues. I mean, it's definitely not perfect. I do expect the mode to be buffed, and I do expect the special ships to be vastly improved. For once, I expect them to change the recharge rate of the shield. That will definitely be buffed. A lot of players are raising concerns about that, so I expect the shield recharge to be significantly increased, and I also expect the Adrestia special mode to cover shield boosters, so that you can do both a shield and armor tank. That's just my expectation. I believe that there's a good chance that they will add the shield booster stats on the repair mode. Currently, it only covers the armor repair, but it might cover the shield booster as well once some time passes and when they decide to change the ships. Now, the Vigilant has also good webs and has a long range disruptor. The Adrestia has that as well, but the Vigilant doesn't have the extra damage control activation time. The Serpentis ships don't have a Romulus, while the Adrestia has that, so that extra damage control activation time can be very valuable, especially when we have ships with high burst DPS. Very good counter against all that DPS, and with the passive armor or passive shield tank you can easily absorb a lot of damage. I'm really big fan of the passive tanks because they are indeed very fun to use, and they can allow you to have decent effective hit points, decent tank, and they can also allow you to have a very nice DPS output. Of course, they have their weaknesses. You can't regenerate armor or shield that quickly, so that is one drawback. And at the same time, a very good tank will be able to surpass your high DPS. That's what's happening with the new Marauder, with the new Navy battleships. They have so much tank that you can't really burst them down with high DPS with a passive tank, because they can tank so much. They will easily out tank you, and if you can warp out, then you might be in trouble. So in order to counter these new battleships, you have to have a tank fit on your own in order to win the endurance battle, and I think there are ships that can do that. In the end, it will the deciding factor will be player skill, player build, and player tactic. That's why the new Navy battleships are so interesting, because they simply are so tanky. It's insane, and they also have a very decent DPS out. Basically, let's say you take a striker battleship and you take a tanky battleship that has a bonus on shield or armor resistance. Well, the Navy battleships are exactly a fusion between the tanky battleships and between strikers, which is quite, I would say, quite fun. Now, back to cruisers here. After flying all of the new faction cruisers, I have to say that all of them are, as I expected, unique. All of them have their strengths and weaknesses. Now, I don't really want to classify them in any sort of ranking list, because there isn't really the best or worst new faction cruiser. I say that all of these ships, again, are unique, and they all have their different builds, tactics, and of course different skill requirements. But one thing is for sure that is common on all of these ships: they are extremely fun to fly. I mean, I have the Fiend. I bought the Fiend, I bought the Celos, I bought the Chameleon, I have all of the new cruisers. The Adrestia, this ship is, as I mentioned before, is not my ship. My friend borrowed it for a video. But I will buy the Adrestia as well. I will fly the ship as well at one point because I already have the Vigilant. And you know, since I already have the Vigilant, I might as well have the Adrestia because I love the Vigilant. It's such a good ship, and I think I can make the Adrestia work as well. The Fiend has an amazing tank. That's the tankest out of the 4 new special cruiser. Actually, it's you know, discussable. I think it's debatable. We have the Chameleon and Fiend for the tank, although the Fiend can have some pretty nasty DPS, especially with drone bombs. But the Fiend is a interdictor, and interdictors have that advantage of having a bubble. Basically makes stabs pointless, so your target can't warp away if you are in null and if you catch them. The Chameleon is a very interesting tanky boat. It can fit a cover-top clocking device, but it can also be flown like a Gila if you like, although I would still probably fly it as a cover-top ship with a clocking device. But drones are pretty nasty. Drones are currently one of the best weapons if you ask me, because of the bombarding plant, which hasn't been nerfed, but it will be nerfed at one point. The Celos is basically a Cinnaball fused with an Ashimo because of the extra long-range webs. The long-range webs can be very useful for fast moving targets, and overall the Celos is definitely a very fun high DPS boat. The Adrestia is very similar to the Celos in the DPS aspect. Both can have some crazy DPS and both can be fairly tanky, so that would be my initial experience on all of these ships, and of course their speed. The fastest is definitely the Celos, followed by the Fiend, I would say, but the Fiend hasn't bonus on Afterburner, so the second place has to be shared between the Adrestia and Fiend, because the Fiend with auxiliary rigs can go 2.93 kilometers per second, while the Fiend goes 2.5 kilometers per second with the same build if it uses afterburners. So with the second place will be shared between the Adrestia and Fiend. But if I have to do a ranking list, the second place goes to the Adrestia, third place on speed goes to the Fiend, and the slowest is the Chameleon. Although they're fairly fast. They're all fast cruisers, but if we compare their speeds, that's basically the list. Now, in terms of skill requirements, all take about the same to skill. It all depends on your current skill level. If you are specialized for cannons, then the Celos is definitely the way to go. If you're specialized in railguns, then the Adrestia is the way to go. If you're specialized in drones and missiles, then the Chameleon, and if you have lasers, then the Fiend. If you have all of them, well, then just pick what boat you like more. That's usually how I pick the ships that I fly. Now, I started with the Fiend because I was most interested in the Fiend at the start because of the passive tanking that you can do with the shield, then the Celos because of the Cinnaball, and then I went with the Chameleon because I didn't have good skills for the Adrestia, and here I'm flying the Adrestia once I obtained some form of decent expert skills for it. So I'm honestly very happy that these ships are so fun to fly. I can tell you right away, a little bit up ahead on time, we will be getting special edition frigates and special edition destroyers. Now, An example of a special edition frigate would be the Freki. I think that little guy will be... I think that cute little boat will be very fun to fly. Basically a rifter. That's... I'm going to get 100%. As for the special edition destroyers, now that's a good question because I don't really remember any special edition destroyers. So I will be playing around with the Evoline ship tech tree just to see what ships we can expect. So overall, the Adrestia is performing up to my expectations. Now I know it's not perfect. It really needs a buff. Now first, the Fiend had 5 slots. The Adrestia had 4 high slots. So I think they'll be doing something more. I mean, they have to do something more on these ships to make them a bit more unique. And I know that the developers, listen, I already mentioned that like a couple times, they do watch the videos, they do take some of the advices that I give here. So if the developers are watching, then they will know what aspect of the special ships to boost. And I'm not only talking about the Adrestia, I'm talking about all of the special ships. They all need to be... They all deserve to be changed, reworked a bit, to be buffed, so that they are a bit more different from the other faction cruisers that we have in the game. Am I happy for flying them? Yes, I am. Pretty happy with the faction cruisers. I mean, I am a cruiser pilot. I was a cruiser pilot since basically day one. I started PvP with cruisers. Actually, no, I started PvP with a Talvar, and then I jumped on cruisers with the RB. And basically, ever since then, I've been in love with cruisers. Although the stabs have been nerfed. The stabs really have to be changed, and they need to have more of a penalty on the ship. If stabs had more penalty, I would say they would be a bit more balanced. That way, ships who have a lot of stabs will also have some drawbacks. And I believe with the drawbacks, it would make players actually learn how to fly the ship. They wouldn't just, click the stab and escape, or just warp out. Which makes the use for cruisers very limited unless you are in a fleet. And since I love to do solo PvP, I wish I was able to... I wish that I'm doing solo PvP every day, but every time, like, if I find a good target and I tackle them, the target just warps out because they have like a million stabs. That's the reason why solo PvP became a bit scarce. But doesn't mean that I don't do solo PvP. Oh, I do that. I do that. It just takes time to compile enough footage to get a proper video out. But I do solo PvP. I love solo PvP. And with these faction cruisers, I'm definitely planning to do solo PvP. With the Fiend, I think it will be very fun. With the Celos, it will be extremely fun because that's a cover tops cruiser. And I have a good barrage implant currently, so that will help me deliver some good DPS as well. Alright, well, this was a very nice little run with the Adrestia. Now I have to return the ship to the owner, to the rightful owner of the ship. Again, it's not my ship. So, if you guys enjoyed, and if you would like to see more, and if you would like to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. It does help out a lot. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.